one of my greatest joys, I think, which sounds a bit silly, but is going for a walk and seeing how much things have changed and noticing that we have really improved the property. We've changed the landscape for the best, and it just gives me this nice sense of, it's a sort of warm and fuzzy feeling, which is a bit, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a woman, but it does, it feels like I'm actually doing something positive to help repair the landscape, and the stuff that we've done has made a difference.
At the moment in the background there's all sorts of chorus going on from the birds. We've just seen some fairy wrens down the saltbuster, coyotes. Andrew's in the background having a listen to see what's happened to the marri trees behind, which were isolated paddock trees. This area was going sodic, I guess, couldn't crop it. So we've got a spring just up to my left about 100 metres. There's a dam on that, freshwater spring, but this area was affected by salt and was probably cropped 10 years ago. But you can't access with the machine, you get bogged down here, and yeah, it wasn't producing a good crop. So rehabilitate it with stuff that does grow and provides a habitat, which is excellent. It increases the biodiversity on the creek line, and there's all sorts of benefits you hear about harbours for natural predators, insects, birds, for affecting insects in the crop.
We found that by planting trees in areas that weren't actually being cropped, we stopped them being a weed seed production area, because the trees outcompete the weeds. So instead of just having a massive area that's not cropped but is just producing wild radish, cape weed, cape tulip, African lovegrass and Patterson's curse, we actually don't have that anymore.
Don't see any wild radish here at all.
No, and this used to have a fairly high wild radish content, so that's another reason. If it's not being cropped, that's fine, but it needs to be productive in some other way. And as Jeff said, it's really good for integrated pest management, because you do have predatory insects in the revegetated areas, as well as them being used by bats and things like that.
One of the things I really enjoy is when we walk through here, we see when things have self-seeded, and then you're getting the natural spread of, because we've got straight corridors here from where we planted trees, and then in some places you walk along, you see self-seeding of species, which is quite exciting. And it doesn't happen straight away, but after a time, I think after the soil surface is stabilised, the environment is what the plants require, it happens, and it's great to see.
And then also we like to plant a mixture of species, because if some don't work, that's fine, but there will be others that do, and you know the ones that are working because their seedlings start appearing, so that's always good, and it saves us buying the seedlings and then spending the time planting them. This is part of what we call Cousins Creek. When we first bought the property, we'd get bogged lots and lots because we didn't know it, but it was also quite wet then. This was unproductive land, but was also eroding away, and the salt was just expanding out. So we've planted it with various salt-tolerant melaleucas, saltbuster in the really bare-scald areas. This stuff, which I never know the name of, but has wonderful seed pods.
Site preparation for planting trees. Sarah would like me to come through. I do a ripping through here with our catchment group's got a ripper, a mounder, which we hire off them. And yeah, site preparation, rip a mound. In the salty areas, we don't actually have to do a site preparation for spray because there's not actually any growth. And just come through that season and plant the trees. Some people say we're planting too dense, but that seems to work well for the bird life. It's trees close together, gives them a nice dense habitat. We try and vary the species, and so try and hit species which are suited to the environment. They wouldn't have necessarily been here originally, but we try and, if they were to evolve now, they would be. Yep. Hypothetically speaking.
And we do plant close together, but that then does produce a thicket effect. It also begins to add some mulch, a mulch layer to the soil, which starts the ground repairing itself, so you're not having that erosion happening in the same way. We do begin to get the grasses moving through, and the thickets certainly help for the bird life. We certainly know when the drainage line plantings are working because we hear the spread of frogs. Areas where there never used to be frogs, because we've now planted, they now do have frogs in them, and they've spread up the drainage line, which is quite rewarding.
It's good to see the stabilisation of the soil surface as well. Instead of the soil being a bare surface and almost like a scald effect on top, we do start to get a bit of barley grass cover, a bit of wildweed through here as well. So it does stabilise the surface, which is very nice to see. And then it gives us opportunities in the future, if we wish to, we can come back and enhance the environmental landscape by adding other species, maybe trees to areas that were shrubs, and just increasing the biodiversity further there.
We also have a policy of, if when we're walking in the evenings, which we try and do, if I'm walking through an area which has sedges that have got seeds on them, I'll grab a handful, and as I'm walking along I just scatter. And I thought for a while I was just wasting my time, but this year I've actually seen quite a few clumps of sedges come up. I also do it with samphire, because we don't have a lot of that. We have it in some places, so I'm spreading that as well, because my aim for the farm is to have 100% ground cover 100% of the time. The only bare bits will be the bits around the sheds, fire breaks and tracks.